In this video, we're going to be working on this beast. Today, we're going to be tackling the rear suspension. If you didn't already know, this is a 1/14 scale build. I'm building it to withstand hopefully around 200 pounds of payload capacity. So if you're interested, make sure to check out all the other videos. They're linked in the description box below. Before I start building, there's a couple steps that I go through every time before I build a component or part of the truck. Step number one is to figure out what materials you have available to you to use. Step number two is going to be the designing, drawing, and thinking part of the build. So this is a very important part of the build. It allows you to map out where you want to use different types of steel, for example, flat stock rod, square tube, angle iron, or whatever you're going to use. It also allows you to see how the suspension is going to work before it's in the truck. You can see the pivot points and kind of get an idea of how everything's going to move. Most important thing to remember is that sometimes ideas on paper don't transfer to the real world, so you just have to come up with better ideas and better designs. Step three is obviously then going to be the fabrication part of it. Welding, cutting, grinding, drilling holes, all those kinds of things. So that gives you an idea of my process when I'm building. So with that, let's jump right into it. I'm going to try and tackle the rear suspension. So you're probably wondering why I welded all these washers on the ends of these springs. You'll probably understand better later on in the build, but basically the suspension is being set up as a cantilever suspension system. So that's what I'm going to work on next, is drilling holes and setting up the cantilever system. This is a trick I showed in one of my other videos, but basically the trick is to clamp your two pieces of steel together. You can see there's two pieces of steel, and these pieces of steel need to be exactly identical and drilled at exactly identical spots. So clamp it all together and then drill it, and then you'll have exactly the same hole and two different pieces of metal. So you just watched me build the cantilevers for the cantilever suspension system on the truck. Next, I'm going to move on to the rear swing arms.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles.
So I didn't show it on video, but basically I ended up making the rear swing arms and the purchase for the rear swing arms. I also drilled and tapped a bunch of holes, so that's what they look like. And now it's time to go ahead and weld these onto the frame of the truck.
Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
The rear swing arms themselves are done. This is kind of what they look like. This is going to be where the suspension hooks up for the cantilever system. And they're both pretty much identical. Now it's time to go ahead and start installing the upper suspension components. Alright, so I went ahead and assembled a couple of the pieces, the cantilever system springs, and then the two bars with the flat stock welded to them that you saw me just make. So, but anyways, it's all kind of put together, and this is kind of what it looks like. And now at this point, you can kind of understand how this system is going to work. And basically, we're going to have not exactly push rods, but I'm going to call them push rods because there's basically going to be a connection between the swing arm right here in this hole where my finger is, and then of course the hole on the cantilever. So basically we're gonna have the ability for the swing arms to kind of go over terrain, and like the axles flex back and forth, and also of course suspension. So it was quite complicated to put all this together and figure it out, but for the most part it's done, except for making the again, the push rods. So I'm gonna get on to making the push rods, finish those up, and then that'll be it for the rear suspension. So the rear suspension and swing arms are completely done. You can see how the cantilever system works a little better now. Both the swing arms can articulate, and then also, like I said before, it has suspension. I don't know if you can tell, but the springs are compressing. The cantilever suspension system was an obvious choice on this build because the springs were simply too tall to be placed vertically, so the cantilever system allows them to be laid flat, which saves a lot of space. We don't have a lot of space to play with, especially because we're gonna have a wood and metal flatbed on this thing. I'm just glad that everything worked out because this was a very complicated system. Took a lot of thought to get this thing put together and working. The most complicated part of the build is finished. There will be a run video coming very soon, so stay tuned. All right, so that's gonna be it for this video. Don't forget to go down below, comment, rate, and subscribe. Click on the bell to get your post notifications. As always, all of the other build videos will be linked down below in the description box. Make sure to go check those out. My goal is to post videos every Monday, so if you're interested in watching these videos, make sure you check back on Mondays, and thanks for watching.